Hi, this video is an introduction to Amplify Fusion, Axway's enterprise integration platform as a service. So here I'm at the login URL for a tenant, and I'll enter my credentials. Notice I could also connect to an IDP and have SSO support, but currently I'm going to log in with my username and password. And here I'm brought into the main screen. I see a timeline of all activity in my tenant, and I see that I am in the default team. I can also see the three modes that are available on my shared data plane for development, QA, and production, called Design, Check, and Live, and I'm logged in as this user. I can also see the three main modules in Amplify Integration. I see the Designer, and that's where we build integrations and test integrations. I have the Manager. This is where I manage user accounts, user roles, teams, my SSO, my Axway Engage integration, my data planes, and my deployments. And finally, the Monitor is where I can view transactions, I can do debugging, I can reprocess failed transactions, and I can generate reports. So I will start off in the Designer, and I can see all of the projects that are in the design phase in Check and Live, and I can see all the artifacts that are used in my tenant. So I have 60 services, I have 0 Java services, 153 integrations, etc. On the left-hand side, I can actually see all the artifacts from projects, APIs, integrations, services, etc. And I want to highlight connections. So one of the main features of Amplify Fusion is the amount of built-in connections to various backend systems like Amazon S3, Apache Kafka. I also have access to a database connector, which would allow me to connect to Postgres, Microsoft SQL, MySQL, etc. And you can see all of the different connections. I have an HTTP client, HTTP server. I can connect to Jira, Microsoft Teams. There's an MQTT client, Microsoft Outlook connector, OpenAPI, and OData. RabbitMQ. So tons of connections that I could use to trigger integrations and use inside my integrations. All right, so let's go into my projects where I get to see all of my projects. And projects are just collections of artifacts, and they're typically grouped around some group of integrations that perform some function, but you can also have other types of groupings, like a project of connections that can be shared across multiple projects in your organization. And if I go into a particular project, I can see, well, first I can see the various artifacts and how many artifacts are used in a project, and then I can click in. This lock is to acquire a lock, so I can have multiple users working on the same project, one at a time. They acquire the lock and lock the project, and then they're making modifications. And here in a project, you can see I have an integration, I have various connections, various data objects. Let me create a new project so you can see what it looks like. Hello world. So now I've just created a new project and it's empty. I'll create an integration. And here you can see the canvas because it really is a no-code, low-code solution, and really it's no-code. You rarely ever have to go into write any code, and for that we do have a Java service to do that. And you would do that if there's some functionality that's currently not available. You could always drop down to Java to implement it. So you can see that I've got this button here for an event. So an integration must be triggered. There's many ways to trigger an integration. So if I click on event, you can see all the ways that applications can trigger an integration. Like I can have an Apache Kafka consumer to consume messages on the topic. And I can have Salesforce, push topics, and platform events. And I can also have an FTPS client, so I can be monitoring an FTPS server on a certain folder, or I have an MQTT client, but I'm just going to use a scheduler. So this is creating a cron job. And it has many different modes. I'm just going to set 60. So this will run every 60 seconds. And now what I can do is I can start adding components. So here's my list of components. Here's all the application components. So for example, I could do a database insert, or maybe I could create a bucket, or create an object in a bucket in Amazon S3. I have all of my business logic, for loops, do whiles, etc. I can send an email, make HTTP calls, connect to an SFTP, and upload a file. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a log component. And you can see here the configuration panel for this log component, and I can expand that so I have more room to work. And I'll just set the value and say hello world. And then I'll save that. And because I'm using a scheduler, I can just test this by clicking the test button. And this will bring me into the monitor. And the monitor allows me to see the execution of all my integrations. So by running the test, it actually brought me into the monitor and brought me into the transaction, which was that integration running. I can see that the scheduler ran, the log ran. I can come down here, I can click on the log component, and I can see the hello world message as well as the state of all my variables. So that's a hello world example. Since we're in the monitor, let's take a look at the transactions. I can see all the transactions that ran in my tenant, and I see several here with errors. You can see the project name, the integration name, when it started, when it ended, how long it took to process, as well as the data plane it ran on, and the type of trigger. I can also filter by project name. I can also filter by integration name. I can multi-select, and I can also check on status and look at all or failed. Then I can apply that, and then you get a filtered list. And then of course I can generate a report based on a filtered set of transactions, and then those reports would appear in the reports tab after it's done generating the report. So finally, let's take a look at the manager module. And the manager module is where I can manage my data planes, deployments, I have users, I have roles, and I have teams. So you can see all the components here: users, roles, teams. I can configure my single sign-on. I can integrate with the Axway Engage, formerly known as Marketplace. I can see events that are queued. I can look at my environments. I can run deployment jobs, deal with certificates. We have a document store for non-volatile storage, so I can store data in between transaction runs. I have applications. These would be applications tied to APIs, and then I can configure an identity provider. We'll take a look at roles. So this is a role-based system, and we have some predefined roles that give you access to the monitor, for example, if you're a support user, or the designer if you are a developer, the manager if you are a deployer, etc. I can also look at my data planes. You can see in this environment I have one shared data plane, but I also have some dedicated data planes running in Azure or AWS. I can look at the details of an environment and set up notifications, configure the timeline, and deal with environment variables. And there you have it. That's a short introduction to Axway's Amplify Fusion, the enterprise integration platform as a service. Thank you.